You might ask, why am I just now coming out with these videos? And yes, I do intend to write a book. The reason I am just now speaking out on many things that I have kept silent that were very pertinent to the case was because I was considered a witness in the case. And as such, I didn't want to discuss it publicly. I also was not allowed to read any other witnesses, like grand jury testimonies, etc. You know, I wanted to make sure that there was a fair trial. Do I believe that Kelsey Turner and John Kinnison are guilty? Absolutely I do, 100%. My analogy of this, I have said it before, is John Kinnison may have been the gun that killed Tom, but Kelsey Turner pulled the trigger. I'm going to give you a little bit of background before we get into anything more about Tom, his disposition, and his mental, physical, and cognitive health, and the decline, the very rapid decline from just about the time he met Kelsey Turner in 2017, late 2017, until the time that Kelsey Turner murdered him in March of 2019. Tom had problems, well, let me go back a little bit further. Tom's father passed away from Alzheimer's. Tom knew he was predisposed to Alzheimer's, and it worried him. I think he knew that there was a good chance that he had inherited that predisposition. And it always worried him. It always did. That, in addition to another problem, an external problem that was happening at the time. We had this one very Karen-like neighbor that's pretty much as nice as I can describe him, who was making Tom's life a living hell. He was always, he somehow or other managed to find out that Tom didn't have a permit for one of his storage sheds. And he kept complaining and complaining to the county and any other authority that he could. He was just a professional Karen, okay? But it was beginning to make Tom's life pretty miserable. And then the woman from the Monterey County inspection, you know, property inspection or permit department or building, whatever it was called, she, on top of that, was extremely unprofessional and added to it. Long story short on that, she had taken a maternity leave. And when she came back, Tom made the remark that he didn't know she was pregnant. Well, she took it as he was calling her fat. You know, I told Tom, I said, that's probably not the smartest thing in the world. Don't ever do that again. You know, it's like women, women take these things a little differently than men. But anyhow, to put it mildly, she was extremely unprofessional about it. And it became apparent, she dragged this on for years, and it became apparent that she was just going to drag it on. The fines at this point had been threatened with about between $600,000 to $800,000 for a shed that probably cost less than $5,000. Okay, and she kept it up, and it became quite obvious that nothing Nothing was going to satisfy her. And I told Tom, I said, you know what? We need to get an attorney and let them handle it. This is beyond, our capabilities of handling it. We need a professional on this. So we did. We had an attorney. In fact, one of the things I was particularly worried, and we had a meet when he didn't come home on that plane, and that was a Monday. We had a meeting, I believe it was scheduled for Wednesday, with the attorney and the county. And I knew he wasn't going to miss that. But, another story, but, it was a constant pressure, mental pressure on him. And then, so that's pretty much, the other pressures he had other than Kelsey Turner. And during this, the last year, probably 2018 it would be, I noticed Tom had a rapid mental decline in his cognitive abilities. At first I thought, oh, maybe this is just my imagination. He's getting a little bit older and, but his judgment was starting to get really bad. He couldn't remember things. He couldn't remember how to do things. For example, it was, I believe it was probably August or September of 2000, because it was when Kelsey Turner was starting to put more and more pressure on him. He usually would stop at the grocery store or something on his way home from work in case, needed to pick up milk or bread or eggs, whatever, normal stuff. And then he calls me from the grocery store and he says, I think someone stole my car. Can you come and pick me up? And I think, okay, this is kind of shocking. And I said, well, have you called the police yet? And he goes, no, I haven't called the police because I don't remember what the VIN number is. And I told him, well, the license, because he had taken a picture of the license plate. Or I think I had a record of the license plate on the pictures for the insurance. I said, well, it's on your insurance card. Call the police and report it stolen, and I will come. I'll leave right now, this very instant, and come pick you up. Because we lived about 8 miles out in the country, traffic in California. It took me about 20 minutes. I mean, I immediately left. I just grabbed my keys, my purse, and was out the door. And I get there, and it's the Safeway in Delray Oaks, and he's literally standing in the middle of the parking lot. And it's a busy parking lot, and cars are going around him, and he's on the phone. And I go up to him, and I said, Tom, what are you doing? He said, I'm on the phone. I go, well, are you talking to the police? No, I'm calling the insurance company. And I said, well, have you reported it stolen yet? No, I'm calling the insurance company. And I said, Tom, you need to call the police first, then the insurance company. I'm going to take a little spin around. I said, you go stand up there on the sidewalk. Get out of the middle. This is dangerous. You're in the middle of traffic. It's dark. Go stand up on the sidewalk. And I'm going to go around the parking lot and just make sure your car's not here, and I'll pick you up. But call the police now. Just tell the insurance you'll call them back, but call the police now. So I drive and I look at because he would always park in the same spot if he could. And there was this car right there. And so I drive back up there, circle back around. I said, Tom, your car's over here in your regular parking spot. Have you called the police? I guess at this point it was a good thing he didn't. And he goes, no, I'm still on the phone with the insurance company. I said, Tom, tell him you found your car. It wasn't stolen. You just couldn't find it in the parking lot. And so he does. He tells them, oh, I guess I'll just forget it. You know, I found my car. That's it. Okay. And I'm thinking, this is serious. I mean, because it was like, it was right there. And instead of calling the police, first he calls me. And, you know, I told him to call the police, and he still didn't call the police. He's called the insurance company, and he was standing in the dark in the middle of the parking lot, a busy parking lot, in a dangerous spot, you know. So that was kind of my first clue that things are really not good. And then I would notice as, you know, time went on, he wouldn't be able to do tests. The dogs that he'd had forever, they were old, and they were two little chihuahuas, and he took them to get, to renew their dog license. He didn't actually take them. He just went there. He took their rabies vaccination, and took them to get their new dog license, their dog tags for the year or 3 years or however long they are. And then he comes back and he gets home and he hands them to me. He says, oh, we got to put these on their collar. And I'm looking at them and I go, Tom, we don't have a dog named Angel. You know, the dog's name was Pearl. And I forget the other one too. He had called it something completely different. He goes, oh, I thought her name was Angel. I go, no, Tom, it's Pearl. It's always been Pearl. Still is Pearl. and I thought, that's really strange. I mean, he's had these dogs forever, and he can't remember their name. So that was another, you know, clue that things are not, you know, and then it's just getting in things I can just, you know, that really stick out on my mind is about 2 weeks before this happened, he was trying to find a show that he wanted to watch on TV, and he couldn't figure out how to work the remote control. He'd been working that remote control for years, you know, and suddenly he couldn't, and he just got all frustrated and threw it down. So I picked it up and said, okay, what are you trying to watch? And I found it was a magic show, and I found it for him, and he sat there and watched it. And I was, at this point, I'm getting worried, and I'm kind of wondering, it's like, why aren't somebody at his office, why doesn't one of the other doctors notice this? They're all psychiatrists in his office. How come nobody's noticing this? And so I'm getting a little bit worried, and at this point I'm thinking, you know, he needs to retire really soon. How? And my plans, I mean, at this point I start thinking, how do I convince him to retire? I don't want him making some serious medical error or something. And it's like, how am I going to just ease him into this? So I say, you know, let's think about, let's look at, you know, properties out of state, because this whole mess with his own property was just, it was a nightmare. I said, you know, we need to, you know, get away. And he's like, oh, I don't want to retire. I don't want to leave my patients. I said, well, maybe, you know, there's this new telemedicine that's coming out. You know, let's check into that. And this was before COVID. He was murdered before COVID. and I said, well, let's think about, maybe explore some of that, and then we can travel, take it easy, and, you can still follow those people you need to, okay? And I'm thinking, I got to ease him out of this, convince him it's time to retire. So I'm thinking about that, and then we go on our trip. There's so much in between this, but right now I'm just going to focus on his mental state and facts. We go on our annual trip to Las Vegas in February. There's a medical conference, a psychopharmacology conference, and it was at the Paris. And we would go to it almost, every year. It would be over the President's Day weekend. It would kind of tie into that weekend also, which also February 14th, Valentine's Day was close, and his birthday was February 16th. So we would just, make that, we'd go a little early, stay a little late, and just make it a little annual vacation celebration, celebrate his birthday, because he loved to go to Las Vegas. Not for the gambling. Neither one of us gambled. I think we were probably the only people that could spend a week in Las Vegas and not spend a dime or quarter or whatever in one of those gambling. If I'm going to spend money, I'm going to go shopping, okay? I'm not going to gamble it. I'm going to just go shop. So anyhow, he liked to go to all the magic shows, and he also liked the Cirque du Soleil shows, and so we would, take in all of that. And he had a good friend, and this last one, his very best friend, and his wife met us there, and he was also a doctor, an anesthesiologist, and also a magician. That was his hobby. So they had a lot in common. They were best friends. They would just talk forever. But anyhow, I digress. And I kind of talked to his friend about this and his wife, that I'm really, really concerned, and he noticed it too. So now I'm getting a little bit of confirmation. I'm thinking that this is not just my imagination, So anyhow, there's that trip, and this is February, the middle of February in 2019, just a few weeks before he was murdered. Anyhow, there's only 2 Allegiant flights, direct flights from Monterey to Las Vegas a week, on Fridays and Mondays. So I believe we went on a Monday and we came back on a Monday. Or it might have been, it was Monday. Because Monday was his day off. He took Mondays off. So we come back, we fly back, and he has patients scheduled Tuesday morning. Okay, so he's at work, and I'm, taking care of things that got neglected during the week that we were gone, and there was a lot of things, and I was outside, and I was talking to the guy that did odd jobs for Tom, who was supposed to have done some jobs that he didn't do, but he still charged Tom for doing them, but that's a total another story. And I noticed there's these 2 ladies in the driveway. And mind you, I told you, we're 8 miles out in the country, so it's not just like people would just accidentally drop by. So I walk up there and I ask them, can I help you, And they said, yes, we're from Monterey County Social Services or whatever. They were, like for social services for senior citizens. And they asked me if I knew Dr. Burchard. And they didn't say Dr. Burchard. They asked me if I knew Thomas Burchard. And I said, yes, he lives here, but he's at work right now. And then they asked me, well, has he shown any signs of dementia? And I'm thinking, wow, somebody else has noticed. This isn't my imagination. And I said, yes, he has been. know. But I noticed that this guy, who was the same guy that professed to be Tom's friend on both 2020 and who anonymously took one of the reporters to show them the house that Kelsey Turner lived in Salinas. Just a little side note, he was not Tom's friend. He did odd jobs for Tom. Okay. So, anyhow, there's that, but he was very nosy. And I noticed he was listening and trying to eavesdrop. And I told the ladies, I said, you know, I can't talk right now. I gave him my phone number and I said, call me this week. And they assured me that, oh yes, we'll call you and we'll meet with you. We can either come here, you can go there, we'll meet somewhere else. And I said, good, because it has to be this week though, because the following Monday, I was scheduled to have shoulder surgery, to have a rotator cuff and tendons and everything repaired. And I didn't know how I was going to feel. I knew I probably would not be able to drive because my arm had to be immobilized for a little bit. And so I said, it's got to be this week. And I told them about how Kelsey Turner, at this point, which I will get into in another episode, she was stealing money badly. She was actually manufacturing checks with his name on them and account number. It was that bad, okay? And I suspect that perhaps Wells Fargo is who called these social workers in the first place. And I told him, I said, you know, he is a psychiatrist. He knows how to give you the right answers. And, you know, he's not going to admit to dementia or anything like that. And they assured me they knew how to deal with that. And I'm like, okay, I hope so. So anyhow, they met with him the next day and simply gave him a piece of paper on how to avoid internet fraud. And then practically a week, definitely less than 2 weeks. I'd have to look on the calendar. But that following Monday, when he did not come home from Las Vegas on the flight that he was scheduled, and after I had called you know, of course, Las Vegas Police Department, requested the welfare checks at Kelsey Turner's address, and filed a missing persons report. And I told them, the police, that he's suspected of early stages of Alzheimer's or some form of dementia. And they were, you know, just doing their due diligence. Well, you know, they were saying, is there a formal, you know, diagnosis? And I said, no, there hasn't been time. In fact, that night after he met with Tom met with the social workers, I sat down and talked with Tom. I gave him a list. I said, look, these are, you know, a list of early stages, you know, what, you know, happens in early stages of Alzheimer's or dementia. And I read them off. And I told him, I said, Tom, 7 of these out of the 10 are a definite yes. 1 is a maybe. And I'm not sure about the other 2. In retrospect, I think it was 10 out of 10. And I think that kind of clicked with him at that point. And he had every year around his birthday, which I mentioned, you know, earlier that it was February and it was his birthday, he had his annual physical. And he agreed that he would be tested for dementia or Alzheimer's at his physical. Unfortunately, he was murdered before that took place. It was scheduled, but he was murdered before that. So I told the police that, no, but it was where social workers were inquiring, and even, I'd sit down with him and he has an appointment to be tested for it, but, it hasn't happened. And at this point, I'm like kind of worried, what is happening? I don't know, I don't know. I'm scared to death he didn't come home, And so I called the next morning, because this was in the evening. By the time everything, I go to the airport. He doesn't show up. I go to Tom's office. He hasn't called them. I know now something's real wrong. And I go home, call the police department in Las Vegas, request a welfare check, and file a missing persons report. And by that time, it's after 5. So the next morning, first thing, I call the social workers and left a message. They didn't answer the phone. And it's like a day or two when they finally answer my messages. They return my call, and I told them he's missing. In Las Vegas, can you please, let the police know that he is highly suspected of Alzheimer's? Oh, we can't do anything about that. And I said, well, can't you please at least just call them? Just call them and let them know that, yes, he is suspected of it. There hasn't been a formal diagnosis, but there's been enough evidence, for concern. Because I'm thinking, do we need a silver alert here? What's going on at this point? I'm scared to death. I don't know what's happened. I know it's not good. But I don't know at this point. And they refused. They refused to even do that. So yeah, Monterey County, yeah, they dropped the ball. Well, I promised that I would address the issue of who was the baby daddy of the baby that Kelsey Turner was pregnant with when she was arrested and gave birth to while she was incarcerated at the Las Vegas, or Clark County rather, county jail. I believe, I'm not exactly certain of the date, that it was in August, September, right around there of 2019, somewhere in that area. I also have heard that it doesn't say the father. I have not seen the birth certificate. I have no reason to, okay. I have heard, though, that the child's last name is Kinnison. So one would assume that she has claiming at some point that John Kinnison is the father. Well, let's look at timing a little bit. When she was arrested and it came out that she was pregnant, and that would cause delays and all sorts of things in her being transferred from Stockton, California jail to the Clark County, Nevada jail. Well, I asked, how pregnant is she? And they told me 16 weeks, 4 months. And this was in April, approximately the middle of April. That would put it just about first or second week, in the first half, anyhow, of January would have been the approximate date of conception, somewhere in there. This is not, difficult math to do, okay? If you look on John Kinnison's Facebook, about the middle of February, give or take a day or two, he announces that he's in a relationship, assuming that relationship is with Kelsey Turner. That's 2 weeks. She was already at least 3 months pregnant when she met him. Going to start showing soon, probably. Okay? Did she pull the wool over his eyes? Make him think that he was the father? Obviously, if so, math isn't exactly, or wasn't exactly, his best subject in school. Okay, we can all do the math on that one. So I think that, you know, kind of discounts John Kinnison as being the father of this child. Another highly speculated person, and I have been asked, and people have assumed, that Tom was the father. He absolutely was not the father of that child. There's a million ways that he could not be. I know for a fact that he had not seen her since the first week of December when she left Monterey County to move to Las Vegas. Okay, so timing there is way off. And Tom had no children. None. In all 71 years, he had no children. Okay. About 10 years prior to this, he'd had prostate cancer. The treatment for that, the radiation treatment for that, would leave anyone sterile. Okay? So right then and there, if by some chance some miracle had been physically possible, timing was off. So no, Tom was absolutely not the child's father. Although sometimes I wonder also she didn't list him as the father or tell somebody that he was the father, because I had received an extremely disturbing letter from the child welfare officer, whatever that is, in Clark County, you know, for finding foster parents for children. It was addressed to Tom at our address, and you know, yes, it came from the Clark County District Attorney's office, but obviously a different division. It's a large office, and the DCSS or whatever for child welfare is different part of the district attorney's office than, you know, the criminal prosecution. So they probably have very little contact. But I received this letter addressed to Tom, if he would be willing to take custody of the child. It was very, very disturbing. Of course, I called the victim's advocate and told them that, you know, please inform them of the situation. And also, he is absolutely not the father. And if they wanted to, you know, do further testing like DNA, I would be 100%, you know, confident that Tom's not the father. So now that we have explored who isn't the father, let's look a little bit about who may be the father. Honestly, I don't think she was in a monogamous relationship with anybody to definitely say this is the father. I do know, now this is my own supposition, just from, you know, putting two and two together and listening. The last hearing or two prior to Kelsey Turner suddenly coming up with this Alford plea and receiving a plea deal, her attorney was requesting an edited video of an interview with a certain person, and also lab results. I'm not exactly certain who this certain person that was named was, and I'm not going to name them until I have more absolute proof. But I honestly suspect that after Googling this name of who it might be, I suspect somebody did not want their name associated with Kelsey Turner, and possibly being Kelsey Turner's baby daddy. This is all very Las Vegas-like, you know. Yeah, it would be embarrassing for anybody and the family of anybody, especially if this particular person was already married. And yeah, I understand that would be, oh, trust me, I understand having to even be associated in the same sentence with someone like Kelsey Turner. Okay, yeah. So I suspect possibly this is just purely speculation, but somebody probably made it worth her while to take that plea. Probably knowing Kelsey Turner's her prior behavior, they probably had to make it very financially lucrative for her in order to take that offered plea. I have no proof yet. But I'm sure that if somebody was willing to read the transcripts from the last few hearings, they would know exactly who I'm talking about. I mean, you know, we all know that there could be more than one person with the same name. And all of my inquiries regarding this name have just been stonewalled. So that tells you a lot.